Admiral Peter Collins stood at the center of the vast circular chamber, his Blue Earth Defense Force uniform a stark contrast against the ethereal white walls of the Galactic Space Council headquarters. The room towered 50 meters high, with floating platforms arranged in concentric circles, each occupied by representatives of different alien species. Their quiet whispers echoed through the chamber like rustling leaves. The head counselor, a tall Zalaxian named Vorthak, looked down at Collins with 6 golden eyes. His crystalline skin sparkled under the chamber's soft light. Admiral Collins, the alien's translator, conveyed his words in perfect English. You stand before us to explain humanity's recent, concerning military actions. Collins took a deep breath. After 20 years of service, he knew when a political storm was brewing. Honorable Council, I'm here to discuss our successful defense against the pirate fleets in the Orient sector. We protected not only human colonies but those of 3 other species as well. A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. A green-skinned Moravian counselor leaned forward, her leaf-like hair swaying. Admiral, we have footage of your ships splitting into smaller vessels during combat. This goes against all established warfare protocols. Collins nodded calmly. Counselor, our modular ship design allows for greater tactical flexibility. It saved lives and minimized civilian casualties. Minimized casualties. Vorthak's voice carried a note of disdain. Your ships surrounded the pirates like primitive Earth insects. There was no honor in such combat. Back on the bridge of his ship, the Earth Defense Force vessel Guardian, Collins watched the recording of that battle. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Baker, stood beside him, both of them reviewing the footage that had sparked this controversy. The holographic display showed their flagship, Guardian, separating into 12 smaller vessels during the battle. Each section functioned as an independent ship, controlled by both AI and human pilots. The pirate fleet, expecting to face one large vessel, found themselves surrounded by a dozen highly maneuverable craft. The battle had lasted less than 10 minutes. Sir, Amy spoke softly. They're afraid because they don't understand. Our tactics don't fit their 1,000-year-old combat doctrines. Collins smiled slightly. The Council has followed the same rules of engagement since before humanity discovered fire. Amy, change scares them. The memory faded as Collins refocused on the Council chamber. A new voice spoke up, belonging to a Kraxan representative, a species known for their aggressive expansion policies. These humans show no respect for proper military engagement. Their ships move like scattered dots, their formations make no sense, and they refuse to follow standard battle protocols. Collins felt his patience wearing thin. With all due respect, Counselor, our methods work. We've reduced civilian casualties by 80% compared to traditional tactics. Isn't that what matters most? What matters, Vorthak interrupted, is maintaining order. Your species has been part of this council for barely 5 years. Yet you dare to ignore thousands of years of tested combat doctrine. The Admiral squared his shoulders. We adapt to survive, Counselor. It's what humans do best. A holographic display appeared in the chamber center, showing various battles where human ships had employed their unconventional tactics. Small craft swarming larger vessels, ships splitting apart mid-combat. Decoy maneuvers that made no sense to traditional military minds, but had proved devastatingly effective. This is chaos, declared a Zalaxian military advisor. How can we maintain galactic peace if everyone starts fighting like this? Collins gestured to the display. I see precision, not chaos. Every movement is calculated to minimize loss of life. Our AI battle networks coordinate thousands of actions per second, allowing our ships to work together in ways that might seem random, but are actually carefully orchestrated. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices, each counselor trying to speak over the others. Vorthak raised a crystalline hand, and silence fell immediately. Admiral Collins, the head counselor's voice was cold. The council has reached a decision. Humanity has 2 standard cycles, 6 Earth months, to conform to established military protocols. Your modular ships must be redesigned. Your swarm tactics must cease. Your AI battle networks must be simplified to match Council standards. And if we refuse? Collins asked, though he already knew the answer. Then Earth will face sanctions. Your colonies will be isolated. Your trade routes restricted. Vorthak's 6 eyes narrowed. Surely you understand this is for the greater good of galactic society. Collins looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of various council members. Some showed sympathy, others contempt, but most showed fear. Fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of humanity's potential. I understand, Counselor, Collins replied diplomatically. I will convey your decision to Earth's government. As he left the chamber, Collins activated his neural link to send a message to Earth Command. The Council's ultimatum would not be well received back home. Humanity had survived countless challenges by adapting and innovating. Now, some alien council wanted them to unlearn everything that made them effective. On his way back to the Guardian, Collins passed through the station's observation deck. He paused to look out at the spectacular view of nearby ships. The massive crystalline vessels of the Xylaxians dwarfed everything else, beautiful but rigid in their design, unchanged for millennia. Just like their tactics. Lieutenant Baker was waiting at the docking bay. How bad is it, sir? Collins managed a small smile. Remember those history lessons about the British trying to make colonial Americans fight in neat, orderly rows? Amy nodded, understanding immediately. They didn't like our guerrilla tactics back then either. Some things never change, Lieutenant. Collins entered the ship's elevator, Amy following close behind. Send word to all Earth Defense Force vessels. Training exercises are to continue as planned. Let's see what the next 6 months bring. As the Guardian detached from the station, Collins watched the Council headquarters shrink in the viewport. He couldn't help but wonder if the Council really understood what they were demanding. Humanity had developed their tactics through centuries of warfare and adaptation. Every strategy, every innovation, had been born from necessity and paid for in blood. The Council wanted humans to fight like everyone else, in predictable, honorable patterns that hadn't changed in 1,000 years. But humans had learned long ago that honor meant little if your people died needlessly. Plot a course for Earth, Collins ordered, settling into his command chair. And Amy, make sure our modular systems are operating at peak efficiency. I have a feeling we're going to need them. The Guardian's engines hummed to life, carrying them away from the station and the Council's impossible demands. In 6 months, they would learn whether diplomacy could prevent a conflict. But as Collins reviewed the Council's ultimatum one more time, he couldn't shake the feeling that greater challenges lay ahead. After all, humanity hadn't survived this long by following someone else's rules. Commander Lisa Martinez stood at the viewport of the Earth Defense Force Intelligence Center, watching ships dock at the lunar base below. 5 months had passed since the Council's ultimatum, and something wasn't right. She could feel it in her bones. Commander, you need to see this, called Daniel Wright from his desk. The intelligence analyst's usually calm voice carried an edge of urgency. I found a pattern in the Kraxon raid reports. Lisa walked over to his workstation, where holographic data streams floated in the air. Daniel had been tracking pirate attacks for the past 3 months, looking for any unusual patterns. Now, red dots blinked across a star map, showing recent raid locations. Look here, Daniel pointed to a cluster of attacks. The Kraxon are using Xylaxian weapon signatures. Not copies, actual Xylaxian technology. Lisa frowned. That's impossible. The Xylaxians would never share their weapons with pirates. Unless they wanted to test something, Daniel suggested. He pulled up another display showing energy readings from recent battles. Or someone. The realization hit Lisa like a punch to the gut. They're testing our responses. The Council knows we're under restrictions, so they're using the Kraxon to probe our defenses. She immediately opened a secure channel to Admiral Collins on Earth. His hologram appeared, looking tired but alert. Commander Martinez, what have you found? Lisa shared Daniel's data, explaining their theory. Collins listened intently, his expression growing darker with each detail. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "Do we have solid proof?" he asked finally. "Enough to raise serious questions," Daniel replied. "The weapon signatures are authentic. We've tracked supply routes from Xylaxian space to known Kraxan bases. It's not circumstantial anymore, sir." Collins nodded grimly. "Keep digging. I'll inform Earth Command, but we need concrete evidence before we can accuse a council member of conspiracy." The call ended, but Lisa's work was just beginning. She assembled her best intelligence team, including Daniel and their computer specialist, Katie Howard. They worked around the clock, tracking ship movements, analyzing attack patterns, and gathering evidence. 2 weeks later, their efforts paid off in an unexpected way. "Commander," Katie's voice rang across the command center. "Multiple distress calls from the Anderson colony. They're under attack." Lisa rushed to the main display. Anderson Colony was one of Earth's newest settlements, home to over 20,000 people. The holographic feed showed a massive Kraxan fleet emerging from hyperspace near the colony. "How many ships?" Lisa demanded. 35 capital ships, Mom," Katie reported, "all showing Xylaxian weapon signatures. They're not even trying to hide it anymore." Lisa's mind raced. The colony's defenses were designed to follow council restrictions. They wouldn't stand a chance against a fleet this size. She opened a channel to the colony's defense coordinator. "This is Commander Martinez. What's your status?" "We're in trouble, Commander." Static crackled through the connection. "They knew exactly where to hit us. Our shield generators are down, and they're targeting our evacuation ships." Lisa slammed her hand on the emergency alert button. "Get me Admiral Collins now." But before the connection could go through, Daniel called out, "Second wave of Kraxan ships detected. They're cutting off the escape routes." The next few minutes were chaos. Lisa watched helplessly as the colony's defenses crumbled under the assault. The Kraxan were using advanced Xylaxian targeting systems, burning through the colony's protective shields like paper. Finally, Collins appeared on the main screen. "I'm looking at the data, Commander. This is the proof we needed, but right now, those colonists need help." "Sir, the closest battle group is 4 hours away," Lisa reported. "Even at emergency speed." Collins cut her off. "Forget the battle group. The Liberty is 12 minutes from Anderson at full burn. I'm giving you direct command." Lisa's eyes widened. The Liberty was Earth's newest destroyer, officially listed as a standard vessel to comply with council restrictions. Unofficially, it was anything but standard. "Sir, if we deploy the Liberty's full capabilities, the Council will know we've been ignoring their restrictions." "Then let them know," Collins replied firmly. "I won't sacrifice 20,000 lives to maintain a political facade. The Liberty is yours, Commander. Save those people." Lisa nodded sharply. "Yes, sir." She turned to her team. "Katie, get me a direct line to the Liberty. Daniel, I want every scrap of tactical data we have on those Kraxan ships." The Liberty's captain appeared on screen. "Commander Martinez, we're reading the situation, ready to receive orders." "Captain," Lisa's voice was steel, "disengage all restrictions. Full combat protocols authorized. Show them what humanity can really do." For the first time since the attacks began, Lisa allowed herself a small smile. The Kraxan thought they were attacking the helpless colony protected by outdated defenses. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The Liberty dropped out of hyperspace behind an asteroid, its advanced stealth systems making it virtually invisible. Unlike the rigid, predictable tactics the Council demanded, this would be something else entirely. "All hands, battle stations," the Liberty's captain ordered, initiating combat separation sequence. The massive destroyer split apart into 15 smaller ships, each one powered by its own fusion core and guided by both AI and human pilots. The Kraxan, focused on the colony, didn't even notice the threat until it was too late. Lisa watched through the tactical feed as the Liberty's components struck from multiple vectors simultaneously. Small, agile craft slipped through the cracks in formation, their quantum-tipped weapons burning through Xylaxian shields like they weren't even there. How? The Kraxan commander's confused transmission echoed through the command center. Their weapons. This isn't possible. The Liberty's ships moved like a school of predatory fish, flowing around enemy fire and striking at weak points. 3 Kraxan capital ships exploded in rapid succession as precise attacks found their reactor cores. Status report, Lisa demanded. Liberty's swarm tactics are working perfectly, Daniel reported, excitement in his voice. The Kraxan can't adapt. Their Xylaxian targeting systems are programmed for traditional ship movements. They can't get a lock. In less than 10 minutes, the battle was over. The remaining Kraxan ships fled in panic, leaving behind the burning wreckage of their fleet. The Liberty's components rejoined into a single vessel, looking as innocent as any Council-approved warship. Colony status, Lisa asked, her heart pounding. Shields at 12%. But holding, Katie replied. Minimal civilian casualties. We got here in time, Commander. Lisa let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They had saved the colony, but the political fallout would be massive. The Council would soon learn that humanity had not only ignored their restrictions, but had developed weapons capable of defeating Xylaxian technology. Send everything to Admiral Collins, she ordered. The weapons signatures, the supply routes, and the battle data. The Council wanted proof of conspiracy. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. As her team compiled the evidence, Lisa looked again at the viewport, towards the stars where the battle had taken place. The Council had tried to test humanity's defenses through proxies, thinking they would find weakness. Instead, they had forced humanity to reveal strength they never wanted to show. The breaking point had come. Now there would be no more hiding, no more pretending to follow outdated rules. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity had survived countless wars and challenges. They adapted. They evolved. And most importantly, they protected their own. Lieutenant Susan Carter sat in the command chair of her small ship, the Swift, as it patrolled the edges of human space. News of the Anderson colony battle had spread fast, and everyone knew the Kraxan would strike back soon. They couldn't let such a humiliating defeat go unanswered. Contact, her sensor officer shouted. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Susan leaned forward, watching as dozens of red dots appeared on her display. The Kraxan had returned, just as expected, but this time they brought an even bigger fleet. 65 capital ships, the officer reported, all with Xylaxian weapons. They're heading straight for New Washington Colony. Susan opened a channel to Earth Command. Commander Martinez's face appeared immediately. Lieutenant Carter, are you seeing this? Yes, Mom. They'd brought their whole fleet this time. Susan checked her tactical display. But we're ready for them. Commander Martinez nodded. Operation Hornet's Nest is approved. Show them what your swarm can do. Susan allowed herself a small grin. For months, she had trained with Earth's newest weapons system, the Hornet drone fleet. 5,000 tiny ships, each one no bigger than a car, all controlled by a combination of AI and human pilots through neural links. All pilots, link up, Susan ordered. She felt the familiar tingle as her neural implant connected her to the swarm. Around her ship, hidden in the asteroid field, thousands of small craft powered up. The Kraxan fleet moved forward confidently, their massive ships arranged in traditional attack formation. Their sensors showed only a handful of human vessels, exactly what Susan wanted them to see. They're within range, her tactical officer reported. Primary weapons charging. Susan took a deep breath. Begin Operation Hornet's Nest. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Kraxan fleet drew closer, their weapons charging. Then, the asteroids around them began to move. What the enemy had thought were rocks were actually clouds of dormant Hornet drones, painted and disguised to avoid detection. Now, They came alive all at once. 5,000 drones activated, the tactical officer announced. Swarm control stable. Through her neural link, Susan could feel every drone as if it were an extension of her body. Years of training had prepared her for this moment. She sent a single thought through the network. Attack. The swarm moved like a living thing, surrounding the Kraxan fleet from all directions. Each drone was tiny, barely showing up on sensors, but they carried weapons specifically designed to counter Xylaxian shields. What is this? A panicked Kraxan transmission cut through the comm channels. There are too many. We can't target them all. Susan directed the swarm with practiced skill, coordinating with the other neural-linked pilots. The drones flowed around enemy fire like water, exploiting gaps in their formation that no larger ship could use. On the bridge of the lead Kraxan vessel, Admiral Kraz watched in horror as his fleet was overwhelmed. Their mighty capital ships, each one a kilometer long, were being taken apart by vessels smaller than their escape pods. "Impossible," he roared. "They're not fighting with honor. This isn't war. This is insanity." But Susan and her pilots weren't interested in fighting with honor. They were interested in winning. Chief Engineer Frank Morrison watched from his station on the Swift as his quantum jamming technology did its work. The device, hidden among the drone swarm, disrupted the Xylaxian targeting systems. The mighty Kraxan ships couldn't lock onto the tiny drones, making their advanced weapons nearly useless. "Quantum interference at maximum," Frank reported. "Their targeting computers are completely blind. They're firing at random now." Susan nodded, directing another wave of drones toward a vulnerable cruiser. The tiny ships carried special weapons, quantum-tipped missiles that could pass right through Xylaxian shields, as if they weren't there. "How are they doing this?" Another Kraxan transmission crackled through. "Their ships. They're too small to have jump drives. They must have a carrier nearby." But there was no carrier. Each drone had a miniaturized jump drive, another human innovation that the Council had dismissed as impossible. The swarm could attack from any direction, jump away from danger, and reappear where the enemy least expected. The battle quickly turned into a rout. The Kraxan fleet, designed to fight traditional battles against traditional enemies, had no defense against thousands of agile, intelligent drones piloted by neural-linked humans and AIs working in perfect harmony. "Target their engines," Susan commanded through the neural network. The swarm responded instantly, concentrating fire on the massive engine blocks of the Kraxan capital ships. One by one, the mighty vessels lost power and drifted helplessly in space. Their weapons, designed to track large capital ships, were useless against targets smaller than their minimum tracking size. "Fleet Master," a Kraxan officer's voice shook with fear. "We've lost 30 ships. We can't hit them. They're everywhere." Admiral Kraz watched his tactical display in disbelief. The humans weren't just defeating them. They were doing it without losing a single ship. His mighty fleet was being dismantled by enemies he could barely see. "All ships, emergency jump," he finally ordered. "Retreat. Retreat." But retreat wasn't easy when surrounded by a swarm of FTL-capable drones. Susan's forces harried them every step of the way, disabling engines and weapons to ensure the Kraxan couldn't threaten any other human colonies. When it was over, 45 Kraxan ships had been disabled or destroyed. The rest limped away through hyperspace. Their mighty Xylaxian weapons proved worthless against human ingenuity. "Stand down Operation Hornet's Nest," Susan ordered. The neural link disconnected, leaving her feeling slightly empty without the presence of thousands of linked minds. Commander Martinez's face appeared on her screen again. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. The Kraxan won't forget this lesson anytime soon." "No, ma'am," Susan agreed. "But I don't think this is over. The Council won't be able to ignore this." "They're not supposed to ignore it," Martins replied with a grim smile. "Admiral Collins is preparing to address them right now." The Kraxan fleet was broadcasting everything. The whole galaxy just watched their primitive tactics fail against human innovation. Susan looked out at her drone swarm, now regrouping around the Swift. Each tiny ship represented years of human engineering, testing, and determination. The Council had demanded they fight like everyone else, but humanity had chosen a different path. "Bring the swarm home," she ordered, "and tell engineering they were right about the quantum jammers. The Zalaxians never saw us coming." As the drones formed up for the return journey, Susan couldn't help but feel proud. The Council had called their tactics uncivilized, their ships too small, their methods dishonorable. But at the end of the day, humanity had protected its people without losing a single life. Let the Council complain about honor. Humanity would keep doing what it did best, adapting, innovating, and surviving against all odds. The storm had been unleashed. Now, the galaxy would have to deal with the consequences. Admiral Peter Collins walked into the Galactic Space Council chamber for the second time in 6 months. This time, the room wasn't filled with whispers. It was completely silent. Every alien representative watched him with a mixture of fear, anger, and disbelief. The footage from the Kraxan battle played on the massive holographic display above them. Thousands of tiny human drones swarmed around the massive enemy ships like angry bees, their quantum weapons cutting through the most advanced shields in the galaxy. Head Counselor Vorthak spoke first, his crystalline form trembling slightly. "Admiral Collins, you stand accused of violating Council restrictions on warfare. How do you plead?" Collins smiled. "Before I answer that, I'd like to present some evidence of my own." He gestured, and Daniel Wright stepped forward with a data crystal. "This contains proof that the Xylaxian High Command supplied weapons to the Kraxan raiders, specifically to test human defenses." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Daniel inserted the crystal into the central display, and new images appeared. Supply ships moving between Xylaxian space stations and Kraxan bases. Weapon signatures matching perfectly. Communication logs that couldn't be denied. "This is outrageous," the Xylaxian military advisor shouted. "These records are clearly falsified." "Are they?" Collins asked calmly. "Every piece of data has been verified by 3 independent sources. But more importantly, we caught your Xylaxian weapons in action, being used against civilian colonies." He played the footage from the Anderson colony attack. The Council members watched in silence as Kraxan ships, armed with Xylaxian technology, targeted civilian evacuation ships. "You demanded we follow your rules," Collins continued. "You insisted we fight honorably. Meanwhile, you armed pirates to attack our people. Tell me, counselors, where is the honor in that?" A Moravian representative stood up, her leaf-like hair rustling with anger. "Head Counselor, if these accusations are true, the Xylaxian High Command has violated 17 different Council laws." "The evidence is right in front of you," Collins said. "But let's talk about why they did it. The Xylaxians didn't just want to test our defenses. They wanted to prove that their way of warfare was superior, that humanity needed to be taught a lesson in proper combat." He walked to the center of the chamber, looking each Council member in the eye. "Well, they got their lesson, just not the one they expected." The hologram changed to show Lieutenant Susan Carter's drone swarm in action. The tiny ships moved with incredible coordination, striking from impossible angles, jumping in and out of hyperspace faster than any capital ship could track. "Impossible," a Xylaxian engineer exclaimed. "Ships that small cannot have jump drives." 2 years ago, you said the same thing about our modular ship designs," Collins replied. "You called them primitive. You called our tactics barbaric. But look at the results. In 2 battles, we defeated the largest Kraxan fleet ever assembled, without losing a single pilot." Commander Lisa Martinez stepped forward next, carrying more data crystals. "We have proof that the Xylaxian High Command didn't just arm the Kraxan. They'd been suppressing technological innovation across the galaxy for centuries." New images appeared, records of Xylaxian interventions in dozens of worlds, all aimed at keeping military technology following their ancient doctrine. Species that developed new ways of fighting found their trade routes mysteriously blocked, their colonies under sudden pirate attacks. This chamber is supposed to represent justice and cooperation, Collins said firmly. Instead, it's been used to force everyone to fight the same way, think the same way, and never question the established order. A younger counselor from the Praxi species stood up. I move for an immediate investigation into the Zylaxian High Command. These accusations cannot be ignored. Seconded, called another voice, then another. Soon, dozens of council members were standing, their previous fear of humanity forgotten in their anger at the Zylaxian deception. Vorthak's crystalline form had lost its sparkle. Admiral Collins, this evidence is disturbing, but it does not excuse humanity's violation of council restrictions. Those restrictions were based on lies, Collins countered. You cannot demand we follow rules that were created to maintain one species' military dominance. He played one final recording, the neural link data from Susan Carter's battle. The council watched in amazement as the display showed how humans and AI worked together, coordinating thousands of drones with thought and purpose. Humanity doesn't fight like you do, Collins explained. We never will. We adapt. We innovate. We find new solutions to old problems. Yes, our ships are smaller. Yes, our tactics look chaotic to you. But we haven't just proved they work. We've proved they work better. A Tellurian counselor spoke up, their voice thoughtful. Perhaps it is time for the council to adapt as well. We have followed the same military doctrine for too long. The humans have shown us something important, added another member. Their primitive tactics defeated our most advanced weapons. Maybe we are the ones who need to learn. Collins watched as the mood in the chamber shifted. The fear and anger were being replaced by curiosity and interest. Several technical experts were already studying the drone swarm footage, discussing the possibilities of quantum weapons and miniaturized jump drives. I propose a motion, said the Moravian representative. The Council's restrictions on military tactics and technology should be immediately suspended, pending a complete review. Seconded, called multiple voices. Vorthak looked around the chamber, seeing the way the wind was blowing. His 6 golden eyes blinked slowly. The motion is carried. Admiral Collins, humanity's innovations have given us much to think about. That was our goal all along, Collins replied. Humanity doesn't want to dominate the galaxy. We want to help it grow, to find new ways forward. But we can't do that if we're forced to fight with one hand tied behind our back. As the council session ended, Collins met with Commander Martinez and Daniel Wright in a private chamber. Well done, both of you, he said. The evidence was perfect. The Zylaxians made it easy, Martinez replied. They were so convinced of their superiority, they didn't even try to hide their tracks. What happens now? Daniel asked. Collins looked out at the massive space station that housed the council. Now, everything changes. The Zylaxians will lose their military dominance. Other species will start developing their own innovations. The galaxy will evolve. And humanity's role in all this. Martinez wondered. We'll do what we've always done, Collins smiled. Adapt, innovate, and help others do the same. The age of rigid doctrine is over. It's time for something new. As they walked back to their ship, Collins couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Humanity had faced a turning point. Follow the old rules or stand up for their right to be different. They had chosen the harder path, but in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. The Council's reckoning had come, and with it, a new era of warfare, technology, and cooperation was about to begin. 3 months after the dramatic council session, Commander Lisa Martinez stood on the observation deck of the new Galactic Defense Academy. The massive space station orbited Earth's moon, its windows glowing with activity even at this late hour. Below her, in one of the largest training rooms, Lieutenant Susan Carter was teaching a class of alien cadets how to use neural links with drone swarms. The sight would have been unthinkable just a few months ago. Quite a change, isn't it? Admiral Collins asked, walking up beside her. Lisa nodded. 6 alien species have already asked to buy our drone technology. The Moravians are particularly interested in the neural interface systems. And the Xylaxians? Collins raised an eyebrow. Still adjusting, Lisa smiled. Their new leadership is more open to change, but 1,000 years of tradition doesn't disappear overnight. They watched as Susan's class practiced basic swarm maneuvers. The alien cadets were still getting used to neural links, but they were learning quickly. Each species brought their own unique perspectives and ideas to the training. Chief Morrison's quantum jamming technology is being adapted for peaceful uses, Lisa reported. The medical community thinks it could revolutionize surgery. Collins nodded approvingly. That's exactly what we hoped for. Innovation breeds innovation. The door slid open, and Daniel Wright hurried in, carrying his usual stack of data pads. Admiral, Commander, the first Joint Fleet exercise is ready to begin. They turned to the main viewport, where dozens of ships were gathering. It was a remarkable sight. Vessels from 20 different species, all preparing to train together for the first time in Council history. Look at that. Collins pointed to a Tellurian ship breaking apart into smaller components, copying the human modular design. They've already started adapting our ideas to their own technology. And we're learning from them too, Lisa added. Their crystal matrix computers are incredible. Combined with our AI systems, she let the thought trail off, imagining the possibilities. The exercise began, and the gathered ships started their maneuvers. Human drone swarms flew alongside Moravian biological ships. Tellurian modular vessels worked in perfect coordination with Praxi energy constructs. It was chaos and harmony all at once. Message from the council chamber, Daniel reported, checking his pad. They've just approved the new military cooperation treaties. All member species now have access to a shared technology database. Any opposition? Collins asked. Just a few of the older Xylaxian colonies, Daniel replied. But they're a minority now. Most of the galaxy seems eager to embrace change. Lisa remembered the fear and suspicion they'd faced just months ago. Now those same species were sending their best and brightest to Earth to learn and share knowledge. Commander Martinez, Katie Howard's voice came through the comm. You might want to see this. The Praxi just demonstrated their new hybrid technology. The viewport display zoomed in on a Praxi vessel. It had combined their energy-based construction with human drone technology, creating swarms of energy beings that could change form at will. Amazing, Lisa breathed. We never even thought of that application. That's the point, Collins smiled. Every species thinks differently, approaches problems differently. When we share those perspectives instead of forcing everyone to follow the same rules, we all grow stronger, Lisa finished. They watched as the Joint Fleet completed its exercises. There were mistakes and confusion. Of course, this was all new territory, but there was also innovation, adaptation, and most importantly, cooperation. Admiral, Daniel checked another message. The Kraxan representatives have arrived. They're ready to begin peace negotiations. The Kraxan, their military power broken and their Xylaxian backing exposed, had finally agreed to talks. Their defeat had shown them a hard truth. The old ways of warfare were over. Tell them I'll meet them in an hour, Collins replied. And make sure they understand. This isn't about punishment. We want them as partners, not enemies. Lisa nodded in agreement. That was the real victory, not just defeating the old system, but building a better one in its place. In the training room below, Susan's class had finished their basic exercises. The alien cadets were chatting excitedly, sharing their experiences with the neural links. Each had found their own way of working with the technology, bringing their species' unique traits to bear. The Council wants to establish more academies like this, Daniel reported, one in each major sector. They're calling it the Galactic Innovation Initiative. Better name than Primitive Tactics Training, Lisa joked, remembering the Council's old dismissals of human methods. Collins chuckled. Amazing how quickly primitive becomes innovative when you prove it works. A group of Tellurian engineers walked past, deep in discussion with Frank Morrison about quantum physics. Nearby, a Moravian biotechnology expert was explaining their latest discoveries to a fascinated human scientist. Look at them, Lisa said softly. 6 months ago, they wouldn't even talk to each other about military matters. Now they're sharing everything they know. Fear holds us back, Collins replied. Fear of change, fear of the unknown, fear of being proven wrong. Humanity had to move past those fears to survive. Now we're helping others do the same. The Joint Fleet exercise ended with a spectacular display. Thousands of ships, drones, and energy constructs moving in perfect harmony. It wasn't the rigid, traditional formation the old Council would have demanded. Instead, it was something new, something that combined the best aspects of every species' approach to space and warfare. Message from Earth Command, Daniel said. The new Council Charter has been ratified. All species now have equal voice in military and technological development. The end of an era, Collins mused, and the beginning of a better one, Lisa added. They watched as the ships began docking with the Academy. New classes would begin soon. Soldiers, engineers, and scientists from across the galaxy, all learning from each other. The old boundaries were falling away, replaced by a spirit of cooperation and innovation. You know what the best part is? Collins said suddenly. We didn't have to conquer anyone. We didn't have to force our ways on them. We just had to show them there was a better path. Lisa thought about the battles they'd fought, the revelations they'd exposed, the changes they'd sparked. Humanity had done what it did best, adapted, survived, and helped others do the same. Sir, Daniel checked one final message. The new council session is about to begin. They're waiting for your opening address. Collins straightened his uniform. Well then, let's not keep them waiting. We have a galaxy of innovation to unleash. As they walked to the council chamber, Lisa took one last look at the Academy. Hundreds of beings from dozens of species, all working together, all learning from each other. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was progress. The storm they'd unleashed had changed everything. But from that chaos had come something new, something better. A galaxy where innovation was celebrated, not feared, where different approaches were studied, not suppressed. And humanity, the species that had refused to follow the old rules, now helped write the new ones. Not through force or dominance, but through example, innovation, and the willingness to share what they'd learned. The balance of power had shifted, but this time, it had shifted toward something greater than any one species' control. It had shifted toward progress itself.